A contentious yet cogent argument. You should read less. And yes, you're still on a channel dedicated to reading literature. Now, why less? We will delve into that later. But why slower? Let's tackle that now. There is an essay that you can find on Tate Gallery's website titled A Guide to Slow Looking, which introduces this magnificent concept of slow engagement. As you'll discover, it isn't confined to looking at paintings and is perfectly applicable to reading as well. Now, allow me to illustrate this notion. Very often, when you decide to visit a spacious gallery, like the Tate Gallery, or even more notably, the Louvre, you might think that it's a good idea to see everything that's hanged there. Yet, there is a tiny problem. According to its official website, the Louvre boasts over 35,000 artworks on display. To merely glance at each for 3 seconds would necessitate roughly 30 hours. Imagine that level of commitment. Furthermore, studies have revealed that gallery visitors spend a mere average of 8 seconds perusing each exhibited piece, implying not only the impracticality of seeing everything during a single visit, even if it's not the Louvre, but also what revelations can one possibly unearth after a cursory 8-second glance at a painting. Here is another query. What might occur if, instead of a frenzied sprint through the gallery halls, which may indeed offer some cardiovascular benefit, you pause and allocate 3, 5, 10 or even 15 minutes to truly immerse yourself in a piece of art? Quoting that article we mentioned before, this is slow looking. It is an approach based on the idea that if we really want to get to know a work of art, we need to spend time with it. Here's a great example. Edouard Manet's A Bar at the Folies Bergère. Probably I mispronounced it. If you spend less than 10 seconds looking at this painting, or even 20 really, you will only see a woman standing behind a table or a bar with some bottles on it and people sitting at something resembling a theatre on a background. You'll probably shrug your shoulders and think that it is quite a boring painting. To see why this is one of the most emblematic and mysterious and famous paintings of the 19th century, you should spend slightly more time inspecting it. So let's return to it. As soon as you slow down, you might start noticing curious details and eventually become quite puzzled. Look at the woman and what's behind her. It is hardly probable that there is a clone of her with her back to us, so it should be a reflection in what seems to be a giant mirror standing right behind her. Who's this gentleman standing right in front of her? Is it us, the viewer, or is it someone else whom we cannot see because of this slightly funny perspective the artist chose to portray this image in? But wait, there is more. If the audience behind the woman is actually just a reflection in the mirror, then it must be looking at us, standing in front of a bar and the woman behind it. But why? I can go on with it because there is so much more. For example, if you know the context in which such paintings were created, you would have probably picked up that the tangerines in front of the woman used to symbolize prostitution, which is the artist probably hinting at the woman's moral standards, who knows, at the type of a place we're in, but also speaking about the perspective at the viewer's role in all of this as well. Again, who knows? Now, this was just a minor example, but you get the point. In order to truly see and at least to some degree get what the particular work of art is about, you should take some time to look at it, to get familiar with it, and to study it in a way that suggests a meditative reflection on a subject of interest and depth. Now, let's return to literature. Just to be clear, I should first make a distinction between what is called belletristics, belles lettres, or genre fiction, and what is considered to be serious literature. A disclaimer, this is a huge topic I'm not even trying to approach right now. We're just using those terms without judging any particular works of literature or its readers. To distinguish fiction made purely for entertainment purposes and entirely focused on a fast-paced plot, from fiction that is much harder to read because of its widely used literary and stylistic methods to approach complicated subjects and to influence the perception and feelings of the reader with a number of literary devices. Same as a painting of Manet is much more than it seems to be at a first glance. Fiction that can be considered art. Let me illustrate the point and finally slide into the main argument of this video, which is you should read serious literature much slower than you probably used to. James Joyce's Ulysses. This is probably a very obvious example, but this is for the better. It is notoriously difficult to read because of its complex narrative structure and highly experimental stylistics. Its chapters not only resemble, to some particular degree, the chapters of Homer's Odyssey, but also employ most of the literary devices known to human being in the beginning of the 20th century. Different ones in different chapters, which, on top of its previous traits, makes it plain confusing and almost unreadable for a person who just decided to read it as a normal book. However, this is one of the greatest, most sophisticated and, you'd be surprised, intriguing novels of the 20th century, and one of the greatest works of literature ever created in English language. To appreciate it fully, though, and to read it to the end, you'll have to approach it carefully and with some degree of preparation. You'll definitely benefit from learning the context and familiarizing yourself with some secondary literature, and I will dedicate some future videos to how to do it better, but also when reading it, you will have to read it slowly. 2 benefits that you're going to have when reading it. This particular book very slowly. First, slow reading will allow you to appreciate the language of the novel. You'll have enough time to pay attention to the word choice, which is special, and to the complex stylistic devices the author uses on the pages of Ulysses, therefore creating this special atmosphere that is very unique. If you read fast, you won't even notice it, and you won't, that's for sure, have the expected experience from reading the novel. And the second benefit, slow reading results in deep comprehension. That's the reason why we drew a line between low-quality genre fiction, which can be read as fast as you can until you still follow the plot, and classical or contemporary fiction literature, and this can also be applied, by the way, to sophisticated non-fiction literature, which have several layers of ideas and ways of reading. To appreciate Ulysses, you'll need enough time while reading to connect different parts of the book in between themselves, to draw conclusions, to reflect, to place yourself in the author's shoes as well as in the places of some of the main characters, to think about symbolism and to find clues that would lead you to certain ideas that are not just written there in plain English. And what I really like, this is not just reading. It is rather a game, an adventure, an exploration of the novel, but also of yourself. You just use the novel as a starting point for some self-exploration and self-reflection. This is a path, but it's only possible when you read slowly. To conclude, we can't really ignore one more, very obvious reason for reading complicated literature slowly: to ensure your level of comprehension is not below sea level. Speed reading is a myth. If you read very fast, you comprehend, you remember much, much less, which is not good when you read something complex and sophisticated. But what about those books that are so simple that they do not require slowing down when reading them? You might ask. Nassim Taleb once said, if a book is not worth rereading, then you should consider it not worth reading at all, even for the first time. Same applies here. I don't think we should spend our time on the books that are not worth slowing down and reflecting upon what we're reading. Read good literature.